Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be introducing you guys to the Burning Man Festival. Yes, Infernal, Aura Golem. This is a thing. Now, before we get into the video, there's a few things I want to talk about. First thing, disclaimer, this is all done on the multiplayer event server for Crash of the Server Part T, so things might change numerically or otherwise before March 9th. So if it does, it's not my fault. Also, as well, if you end up enjoying this video or, of course, learning something, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way of supporting me currently. Now, for Infernal Aura Golem, or we're just going to call it RF Golem at this point, right? It's what it is. I don't really care. It's terminology these days. But I think, for the last, I think year or two, I've been borderline harassed to try this minion fire necro that a lot of other people have been talking about, right? But every single time I go and watch one of those videos, the person usually has their modifiers turned off on the side of the screen, meaning that they're probably doing normal monoliths and trying to pass it off as empowered monoliths. So, you know, a little bit of, I don't really know if I can really trust it. So I thought I'd just, of course, do it myself. So, yeah, turns out it's actually really smooth. The single target, it's a little iffy. I'm at like 170k per tick on the Burning Aura, on the Infernal Aura Golem stuff. But the clear, oh my god. The clear is amazing for two reasons. One, turns out RF is strong clear. Who would have thought? Oh, amazing, right? Anyone could have guessed that. And two, convocation. I can't tell you how long I've been playing Last Epoch and complaining every single day whenever I play Necro that I do not have a convocation, and they finally gave it to us in the form of Skeleton Mage with these new nodes. This means that I can pull the Golem with me, right? And I can make my clear speed better. And now, of course, since the Golem has this little death aura around it, right? It means that everything just burns away. It's great. Uh, there's a lot of other interesting things with this build. So the entire concept is burnt is built around this whole node, the Infernal Aura Golem node, and essentially it makes it so that it consumes your skeletons and your skeleton mages to get a lot more damage, much like how, of course, all of my bills and my old letters are burnt away in the Burning Man Festival. We, of course, use it to fuel our future endeavors. And overall, this is a really cool mechanic. I think the game needs more mechanics like this, where there's like single one power keystone nodes that introduce entire new playstyles. Because if you are aware of the old Infernal Aura setup, the damage is very, very, very low. So having a node like this is great. Now, sadly, I don't believe that this node is like multiplicative with each other. I think it's additive, the more damage, which is a little sad as we are so close to DPS Nirvana with this 170k. That is very close to what I would say peak DPS for like any build normally. This build is a very balanced build in that regard, because guess what? 200k DPS is like usually the minimum bar for me these days. Now, Infernal Oracle, like I said, the clear is amazing. He just runs around, kills stuff. The aura around him, it's like really good. He'll just like hop around. He's so excited to kill, like kind of like this necrotic bone golden retriever that will just run around and kill everything. So overall, this build has felt absolutely amazing. Now, another thing that, of course, makes this build good is as he kills your minions, right? He consumes your entire cadre of skeletons and bony men. It means that he will summon extra volatile zombies, thanks to the volatile zombie node that summons volatile zombies. And of course, much like beer at a 3-year-old's birthday party, uh, volatile zombie is the glue that holds Necromancer together. It holds everything together, right? And it's great because it means you have some sort of sustain with this build. That's actually one problem with this build is the sustain is a little low. The only sustain that I have access to is zombies for the health healing on death. And thanks to the fact that we summon them all the time, thanks to, of course, our bone golem, it means that overall, like we have decent sustain. Sometimes a little sketchy. Eventually, you'd want to invest in something like Vessel when you get, currency. But I'm not going to be farming dungeon in a week-long event and stuff like that for a Vessel because I have better things to do. So, with all that being said, speaking of better things to do, I will go in game and show you guys everything because, like I said, planner's not updated, so I'm gonna have to just show you guys everything the old-fashioned way. All right, see you in game. All right, here we are in game. We got Daddy's little crack goblin here. I really appreciate the new visuals though. This looks really sick. Just everything about this. I really enjoy this, mainly because it's covering Acolyte's face and her eyes are very creepy and unsettling. So actually not being able to see them is a plus in my opinion. So let's talk about the skills real quick. First skill we're going to talk about is Bone Golem. Now I have a 25 Bone Golem. You don't actually need this. I would suggest at least like maybe a 24. And how do we reach this? Well, we can utilize a +2 on the helmet. Actually, this is bad for us in comparison because I wanted shared minion fire damage, but otherwise this would be a perfect helmet. And then we also run a Logi's Hunger. Now this gives +2 to fire minion skills, and Bone Golem is kind of a point dump, so you kind of really want to have all those extra points. Now, you can also run a Raven's Rise on the glove slot. I did not have access to a Raven's Rise because it's a little, sketchy, but it's a +2 to spell minion stuff. So eventually you could upgrade to a Raven's Rise instead of using a Logi's Hunger, and that would open up your amulet slot for a lot of different options. So yeah, there are plenty of options to get plus levels on this setup. You can even run an Omnis at that point or something like that. Now, the entire concept around the build is, of course, using Pyre Golem. Pyre Golem, it has this infernal aura, so it'll do like a big AoE cast, like boom, bloof, right? And it will, of course, do a Fire Aura degen afterwards, and it's like elemental damage over time. It's great. Now, there's a lot of support for this with like damage over time multi, charred bones for spell fire damage, because it is a spell, by the way. That's why you want a base like, of course, Profane Mask and of course more fire damage over time in the infernal aura area. Now this also combines with the spell damage here because this counts as a spell, and of course we grab fragments of the fallen, so we get 25% more damage, and we're only going to have like one golem anyways. Now the node that holds this entire build together is of course Bone Kindling. Bone Kindling gives you a bunch of more damage per minion consumed with skeletal mages and skeletons. You get 5 skeletal mages and like 10 skeletons right now. So it is like about 900% more damage. So you're doing 9 times the amount of damage. I wish that this wasn't the way that they could fix the skill and maybe make Infernal Aura do damage without this. But this is thematic nonetheless, and it's really cool. One of your minions sucking up all of your other minions. So when he does that little aura, he will consume all of your minions, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. And he'll do this on a 10-second timer, 10-second cooldown, and then the aura will last 10 seconds. So you'll have 100% uptime of it in Monolith. Although if you do fuck up, you do have to wait 10 seconds, which is a little annoying, but like whatever. Now, one thing to note about this aura is it doesn't have the biggest AoE ever, so you gotta like make sure that your skeletons are near your golem. We can go to like an area to like showcase this a bit better. So go here. Hopefully the game doesn't crash on me like it has like it does a few times. Hopefully the loading screens aren't that bad. There you go. Yeah, he is like a decent aura, but like the problem is biggest problem with it, like I said, you have to make sure that the skeletons are nearby. Otherwise, like it is an area. So I'm gonna wait for him to do it. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Waiting. Come on. He's supposed to do it on 10-second timer. Come on. There you go. Yeah. So you want to make sure it's in that area, and it'll actually show you the area of the infernal aura as well by this black line. That's actually pretty big for a minion. Like that's actually really good. Uh, Last Epoch's really hard set on making quality of life and clear for minions in general being really bad. So something having this good of clear is like absolutely phenomenal, right? But yeah, you want to put minions in here, right? Now, of course, for the next skill, Dread Shade. So Dread Shade's a little annoying. We're not running the auto crit node because we don't need it because Infernal Shade does all our damage and it's damage over time skill. This makes it so that if we fuck up with our Dread Shade, right, we like, oops, we can just do it again. It is a little annoying in the middle of a monolith to reapply Dread Shade onto the Bone Golem if there's enough minions running around and stuff. So you kind of have to be a little bit careful with that because the way that Infernal Aura works is it snapshots the moment that it uses it, like it casts. So if you don't have Infernal Shade on it, you're gonna have poo-poo DPS for 10 seconds until you manage to get that Dread Shade back on. So there is a small tidbit of maintenance when it comes to this build. But as long as you get better at just dread shading the right minion, you'll do fine. Usually, if you're near it, you'll dread shade it, which is good. So make sure you're near the golem. Of course, all of the more damage modifiers, all the flat. This node really helps though. It's a 1 point wonder. Instead of a 20-second duration on dread shade, it's a 40-second. That's usually good enough for every single monolith. Like 40 seconds, you just pull it with you, and most of the time, that's good enough, right? Which is great because it means you don't have to worry about it too much. Skeletal Mage. This skill is absolutely amazing now. My head is in the way because of the best node in the tree. This Grave Passage combined with Death's Cavalry. This is the convocation we've been waiting for, we've been dreaming for. It means that 9 minions alongside the Skeletal Mage you get, and most of the time you'll have that little minions because you know your golem's going to be consuming it, and you can pull your golem with you, you can pull all your other minions, and it groups them all together so your golem consumes them all, which is amazing because like it's right, really good quality of life. And of course, we just grabbed the extra minion. Now we are grabbing Death Knights. Why is that? Well, the Infernal Golem is a melee minion still, so it will stay in the front lines. It will go up to things, and you need melee minions to stay up and keep up with it, so that, of course, he consumes them. You need to make sure the skeletons and all that stay near the golem, so he actually consumes them, right? So of course, we want our minions to be melee minions. They did buff Death Knights. The damage on them is like whatever. It doesn't matter. Like I said, they're just being consumed, right? Skeletons, same concept. We remove the archers out of the pool, go for as many skeletons as possible. Eventually, you can go +1 on the chest for skeleton, and you can go for another skeleton ring. I'm pretty sure that I don't need a Ribbons of Blood, but of course, that's to you just got to test the build a bit more. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't need that. So you can go for like double skeleton ring with hollow finger and +1 on the chest. I think you get +2 with an exalted modifier. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't have that +1, which is like whatever, right? So it's like the way to push this build forward. But yeah, overall, we just want to get a bunch more mana back because the way that this works, right, is through monoliths. We want to make sure that Dread Shade is on the golem, right? Then of course cast, bam. So what we do for like the rotation is Skeletal Mage, pull it with us, then cast Skeletal Warriors, and then if you just get in the habit of doing that, eventually you'll have everything, and he'll just keep consuming it and all that. And I'm just wondering, Dread, well, what about mana? Well, thankfully, when all your skeletons die, thanks to, of course, Infernal Golem here, waiting for it. Come on. There you go. Look at that. He'll give you the mana back. And of course, he'll summon volatile zombies, which we'll get into. Thanks to this node, Awakening Presence, it means that whenever your golem is consuming a bunch of minions, it will summon a bunch of volatile zombies. And volatile zombies do a lot of things. They give us health, which is great because we're a health build right now until we get Vessel, like every other Necro build. We can cast them ourselves with Dreadful Horde. I can just hold right click and summon a bunch too for extra DPS. Of course, we had the 16% coal. And then on the tree here, we do want things to die. And that's because Mark for Death turns out reducing enemy resistances is a very good idea right now. So, of course, we want the zombies to die. Obviously, you don't actually need the zombies once you turn into like a vessel setup. You don't actually need zombies. So you could swap these out for anything else later on when you actually get a actual defensive aura setup. You could swap to ward at that point and do just fine, right? Overall, great setup. Really like the skill setup on this. It's really fun. Now, for passives here, I'm just gonna flash you the passives so that you can see them. Generally, I am happy with like 50%, I mean 500% minion health right now. I found that to be the sweet spot. Obviously, if you do T4 Jurla, you might have to have a little bit more minion health. I would not bring this build into T4 Jurla, mind you. There's a lot of like min-maxing to be done before that can be a thing. But yeah, overall, you want as many skeletons as possible from here and here. You want to like grab the skeletal mage here because each one of these is just more damage, which is great. Of course, overall, there's not that much support for Necro on the tree. That is, uh, everything else is like kind of useless for you. So whatever, right? You could eventually go for Wisp Weaver, and as you're consuming mana and use the skill, you get like ward, but like that's not a big deal. Eventually, with like the rest of my points, I would like to get all the way up to like crippling insight because the more intelligence, the more base health my minions have, which means the less increased health I need on the tree. Now, for gearing, one thing I would say, I would one thing for quality of life, more like Reach of the Grave, this 10% leech for spells, that does work for the Infernal Aura. And as soon as I put this on, it made my golem actually immortal. Yeah, it's great. Would have thought. Reach of the Grave is a good item. Getting cast speed on it would be great, by the way. I didn't manage to do it because I haven't been doing Jurla much. Helmet, you want the plus to Capone Golem. Then you want the shared fire minion damage. One of the biggest things about this build is like, thanks to the fact that the Golem damage base is a little low per se for the Infernal Aura, you just want to stack as much damage as humanly possible. Damage here, damage there, plus the skeletons, so you get the increased minion damage and as much increased damage as possible. Because normally with these builds, you'd run a staff with a spell damage suffix, but the problem is we can't run that because we're running Reach to the Grave, right? Eventually, I would like to find a different source of minion leech, but sadly, this is the only way right now. Amulet Logi's Hunger. Literally, this just says +2 to minion skills. Once you swap to a Raven's Rise in the gloves, you can use this amulet for anything you want. Even an Omnis would be fine because that would save up resistance slots so that you could run Vessel with health regen and all that. So that could be in the future. Really shitty offhand. Fleshbound Tome's really strong though because it gives a lot of damage and health, which is good. You could eventually run a shield, like I said. Chest, shared minion fire damage. Instead of summon wraith, you want the +1 to maximum skeletons eventually, as like I said, more damage. This chest could be much better. This build could be much better with a lot more investment, which is great. It's great to have a build that like has really good clear and also has like a high investment amount, meaning that you can just keep pumping currency into it and eventually getting a really good necro build. Like this is a really solid necro build. I would start the game with this. Like I would like start as a season starter. This is like what I would start with because it feels great. Belt. You want some minion health regen, although I don't think you need minion health regen anymore, thanks to Reach to the Grave. So you can actually dump all that minion health regen. Hollow Finger. This is like your best in slot ring because +1 skeleton means more damage, which is great. You want as many as possible. Gloves, like I said, Raven Rise with the +2 to spell minions, and of course, less damage will taken while moving. Although I wouldn't wear one until you got a decent LP pair because you definitely want LP on them, as you can get minion damage on there. You can intelligence, crit avoid, all that kind of stuff. Give me a Okay, sorry about that. Of course, boots, intelligence, movement speed, crit avoid. This is actually a pretty decent pair of boots. Although you could always go for vitality, so you're like tankier. Relic. This is a decent relic as minion damage. You like the rune spawn base, but eventually Vessel is in our life. You eventually want a Vessel of Strife and to go health regen and all that. So you don't really need anything on this. This is an important base, which is great. Means you can go Infernal Aura Golem with the Vessel of Strife, which is great. Yeah, idols. I'm just using stuff to fix my res. I would just use stuff to fix your res and like get some maybe health regen, stuff like that. You can go for a healing effectiveness idols, which will make the zombies actually heal you for more as you scale minion health. And intelligence, your zombies will heal you for much more. And of course, you can use healing effectiveness to scale this farther if you really need to. I didn't feel like as though I needed to, but because like I said, eventually you want to go into a vessel setup anyways. But yeah, having healing effectiveness is great. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video today. All that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go work on the next build.